Okay, so it is 10 a.m. My name is Juana Amaria, and I want to go ahead and go through some housekeeping items to make sure that everyone can access everything on the webinar properly. I know that lots of you are seasoned pros, and now we've got all these cool new toys with our colors and our chats. But go ahead and select a color if you haven't already done so with your chat. We're going to go ahead and just talk about a couple of different training agendas. And this is obviously to really um, provide some resources and maybe reminders for some of you that have been um, that and introduce themselves in the Q&A pod.
Okay, because I can see all the names, but there's some unfamiliar names to me here, so I'm not sure where everyone's from. And if there are any LWIAs that aren't on today, I want to be sure to follow up with them. So unless there's a better way to do it, I'll just ask if anyone from LWIA 1 is here, and if you're here, just type your name. Anyone here from LWIA 1? Okay. How about LWIA 3? Hey, Pedro. And Dee. Okay. LWIA 4? LWIA 7? Or National Able? Okay, LWIA 8? Okay. LWIA 9? Okay. LWIA 10? LWIA 12? Hi, Pam. LWIA 14? Okay, LWIA 15? Just catching up with the scroll here. Okay. Anyone from LWIA 15? LWA 19, LWA 22, and LWA 25.
Rosie knew it was coming.
Yep. Okay, so I have down,
I could send this to you as well, Mike, so that you can...
great, super,
Yeah.
thanks, Swana. Okay, well again, thank you all for joining us today. Our intent has been to do this for a while now, but we wanted to give you all time to actually get the grant in place and have an opportunity to get started on it, because having these things beforehand is nice, but so many things come up when you start the actual implementation that we thought it would be better to wait until people kind of got their feet wet, and then we would have some practical things to talk about. So Juan has already gone over the main overview, so I won't rehash that. So I'd like to start with the employer outreach tracking. First of all, thank you all for turning those in timely and complete. Awana's put the form up, if those of you haven't seen it and don't know what we're talking about. This is a form that after the first quarterly report came in, we thought it would be helpful to our case to be able to talk to DOL about the outreach efforts that everyone is making, and then also maybe see are there some patterns emerging with, are there certain types of employers either being contacted statewide or not contacted, and looking at it by LWIAs, basically just so we can get a better feel on what's going on and maybe some of the challenges that you're facing. So on the form, and I want to scrolling across so you can see the tabs, I just have a couple of housekeeping things that I'd like the folks that, if they're not on the webinar, if you're in an LWIA, please convey this information to the folks that are filling out this form. One of the key data elements is the second column, date of most recent contact. The way we have this set up is, we don't want you to enter the same employer multiple times. We just like to know when you first contacted them and then when you contacted them most recently. Then when we get all of the information from all of the local areas together, we can aggregate it and filter out and figure out who was contacted in the reporting week. But the idea is that we want to be able to see, if an employer was contacted several months ago, has follow-up been done with that employer, and until the employer says that they're not interested, then obviously, you don't want to be going back to that employer every week. But if the employers still say, well, we're interested or we're thinking about it, we want to track and make sure that they don't fall off the table, and everyone does follow up with those folks semi-regularly until they get a firm yes or firm no.
Mike, I just wanted to jump in and let people know, if you click on the screen that we're sharing right now and click on full screen, that will enlarge that screen for you.
Okay. And as we're talking about this, if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand, and Awana will see that. And if you have a question about how to fill out the form, we can address that. The other key form or key field that we're interested in is the sector. Is it a manufacturing employer, a healthcare employer, IT, finance? But be sure to put something in there. A couple of reports have come in with that completely blank. And again, it's for us to get a feel for the types of employers that are being contacted. Sometimes we can guess at it by the name of the employer, but I'd much rather not guess and just have you tell us what sector those folks are in. And then the next one that I'd like to talk about is the current status column. So if we can scroll over to that. Oh, I'm sorry, let's back up just one, but we'll go in order across here. In the column, the number of potential OJT placements, please put a numeric entry in that field, like the number 5, the number 1, the number 15, whatever it is. Some areas are putting in a range, like 1 to 10, or they're putting in text, writing out the word 10 instead of the number 10. We have a formula there that will total that up, but if you don't put a number in there, it blows the formula up. So we like people to use a numeric entry for that field. Then over into the current status column, we actually have a drop-down box in that field. So in every row where you are going to enter some information about that employer, we have a preset field or number of selections for you, and we'd like you to use those. Now, one new one came out. We didn't think to put in that a contract has been signed, but the placements haven't been made yet. So we added that one based on some information that some folks had put in their initial reports that came in. So we've added that one. But we'd like you to stick with the ones that are available in the drop-down box. And it's really easy. You click the drop-down box and then click the particular status that fits that employer. If you have any extenuating circumstances or anything, any nuances to add, you can add that in the comments field at the very right. So a couple of areas kind of got creative on what the current status was, because it was kind of a situation that wasn't a clean fit into all those others. But the place to tell us about that is in the comments. Okay. And then lastly, Samantha, who's compiling all these reports, asked that if everyone would leave the font formatting alone, that would make her life a lot simpler, because she has to reformat that when it comes in. Okay. So that's basically the housekeeping on why we're doing that form and some minor issues that came up as we started to deploy it. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts about that form or the effort in general?
And go ahead and put those questions in the chat pod. We do have a Q&A portion at the end where we can share, and then I'll unmute everyone that's on the phone line. But in the meanwhile, go ahead and just add it on to the chat pod.
Okay. All right. Well, time's going to run short on us if we're not careful. So if no questions are popping up now, we'll move on to the next piece. Can we go over the poll question about the online toolkit?
Absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and open it up for you right here.
Okay.
Okay, so the question was, how familiar are you with the online OJT NEG toolkit? And I put the last one was supposed to be funny, and people were like, what? There is a toolkit. So that's so we'll go ahead and go through some of that today as well.
I'm going to put a link to USDOL's kit in the chat room so people can find it. And should be coming up now. There it is. Okay. For those of you who have not seen this yet, this is a treasure trove of information that USDOL has collected. It contains the original webinars that DOL prepared in implementing the program, but it also has sample policies, sample contracts between employers and grantees, such as yourself. So, and lots of Q&A. So a couple people that I pointed to it have found answers to what they were looking for. I mean, I gave them the answer, of course, but I also said that there's other vital information at this toolkit. So if you haven't seen it yet or are not familiar with it, I would encourage you to go look at it, because it will help you answer questions as they come up, and also, keep you from going astray inadvertently. And of course, as always, if you have a question and you're not quite sure how to proceed, feel free to contact us here at DCO, and if we have the answer, we'll be happy to tell you. And if it's such a left field issue that we don't know the answer offhand, we'll find out. So, and kudos to those of you who have been calling in. Seems like we get a call about at least every other day or so from someone with a kind of slightly different situation. So thank you for all who have already called in or asked about the toolkit. And then also, we have an Illinois version of this posted for the business services teams on Illinois WorkNet, and I'll let Awana talk about that.
So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and just to make a quick note, if you don't see a business services tab up at the top on the workforce professionals pathway for you, it means that you haven't had access to it, and this is for the business service teams. So go ahead and let me know in the chat pod if you don't see what I see on my screen, so that we can go ahead and give you access to that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and if, Mike, you can let me know when we're live.
Okay. There it is.
Okay. I just wanted to show you really quickly. So Mike gave us the link to the OJT page, and then I added the direct link to the actual toolkit. So if you'll notice that it goes through policies and outreach, on it. And this is, we emphasized this when we went through the Greg Newton webinar for OJT, but there's a bunch of stuff here with people that have already gone through some of maybe your same barriers or same challenges, and so this is a great place to access those resources. You have OJT in action, you have a ton of employer videos. This is great for you when you're talking to employers, or maybe you want to add it on to your website, as well as various profiles so that you can see how other people have done their outreach with employers. So I'm going to go ahead and go on to Illinois WorkNet. And so I've already logged on. You go ahead and you click on Workforce Professionals, enter here. And what you'll notice is up at the top, there's a Business Services tab. For those of you that can't see that, go ahead and let me know, and I will put you in the Business Services group. This is the primary page for our business service teams so that you can access the resources you need to assist your local employers. And you'll notice it takes you directly to the page, and then everything on Illinois WorkNet, as you know, is left-hand navigation. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to click on Outreach. And you'll notice that it goes through the three parts of outreach, right? So creating a plan and making sure that you understand, how to take advantages of your opportunities and the type of strengths that you may have with your local community or local partners. Then it goes through community outreach. And I just wanted to mention that this is all based on the business services workflow study that I did with teams across the state. So it's not just stuff that I kind of came up with, but it's stuff that you all came up with, and I took and compiled and put it online. So going through your community outreach and how you connect with your local chambers and your community-based organizations, how do you promote through business letters and various outreach material, social media, and then identifying your champions. And then your employer outreach, and it walks you through how to be employer-focused instead of going there and saying, hey, I got a guy. Walk in there and say, let me assess your needs. Let me see what type of talent you need, and then approach them with your talent portfolio. And I know a lot of you have heard that when we were going through the OJT webinar, but prepare a talent portfolio with various people or candidates in there so that you can say, you need this person. Well, I have this pool of candidates that I can offer to you. And that way you're not restricted or maybe challenged if someone isn't eligible or if someone isn't able to participate. You don't let down that employer. And so we've added some outreach tools and resources here. So it walks you through your SWOT analysis, and various other resources, along with I put together a customizable business services PowerPoint presentation that you can do, and so on and so forth. So these are just a couple of the resources available for your business service team specifically. We also have, under BST Professional Development, If you go ahead and you click on this, you'll notice that all the webinars that we do are available on here. Now, the latest one that we had, its default open, was the labor market webinar, but if you go ahead and click on subsidized training, you'll have all the OJT archived webinars that we did. And actually, this is where you will find this webinar as well. So you can go ahead and click on OJT and then watch the archived webinars that we have. So it's pretty straightforward. It's really, really easy stuff. It walks you through what you need, and it definitely connects you to the OJT toolkit that we have here as well. And so just a couple of ideas, and go ahead and let me know through the chat pod if you were not able to see that on your screen, so I can give you access. And that's it.
Thank you, Juana. All right, well.
So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch over to the Q&A portion so you all can see what you need to see. And I added 2 chats on the bottom. Please share your success stories here, and please share your challenges.
And then I'll move on to the next piece about general implementation issues. First of all, for those of you who are putting your information into IWDS in a timely fashion, thank you so much. For those of you who have a little bit of a delay in getting that information in, I'm going to ask you guys to step up and get that stuff in there more quickly. We ran into a bit of a problem with our reporting to DOL at the end of March because we knew that some good stuff was going on based on the quarterly reports you turned into DCO for your regular grant reporting on the FSR and PSR. I mean, people were writing great stuff. You know, we have two placed already. We have 3 or 4 lined up. We have 5 or 6 employers that we're talking to that are close to making a decision. So, you know, we knew all that, and we kind of counted up the total of people that were either placed or it looked like they were about to be placed, and the number was a good-sized number. But then we went to IWDS, which is what we have to use for our official reporting for the quarterly report that we give to DOL. We had 2 folks. So what DOL sees 2. They don't see the much larger number that we saw. I mean, we could tell them about it, but as far as the automatic report that rolls up to everybody in DC and Region 5, they just saw the 2. So for us to get credit for all the good work that you folks are doing, they have to be in IWDS. There's just no other way around it. So I think reporting has picked up, and I'm reiterating that in case someone missed that message earlier on, that's on the webinar now, that it's very important to have IWDS updated in a timely fashion. The policy letter says that 10 days is the window for entering information about your clients and the services that they're getting. So hopefully that gives everyone plenty of time to get that information in, but it still is rapid enough for us to get our reporting to DOL done in a way that shows all the great stuff that's going on out there. Let's see. So again, you just make sure you talk to your case managers and make sure they're staying up on it. So with that small piece of housekeeping out of the way, let's take a look at our poll questions here, and then we'll start on our Q&A. So the question I'm interested in, let's see, Juana, where's our poll question about barriers?
Right here. I'm going to go ahead and open it up for you.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So we have...
And I'm going to go ahead and unmute everyone, and I just want to ask that you mute yourselves until you're ready to talk. That way we can have, could be easier to manage.
Your microphone has been turned on.
Lack of employers, lack of clients, and both or other. Well, let's start with the left field one. We have 4 areas that say there's an other issue that's a greater barrier to placements. Can those of you who put that down give us a little information about that? Maybe we can come up with something to address that.
And you can go ahead and do that in the chat pod, or you can go ahead and jump in on the call. You're now unmuted, so you can talk. Sounds like people are shy.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I see Brenda writing, and I see
okay.
Peyton writing, so let's give them another minute.
Okay, we have a comment in the chat room. So employers are interested, they sign the agreements, but difficult to finalize the placement. Yeah, is that for numerous reasons difficult to finalize the actual placement? What are some of those reasons? What's a typical reason for that?
And I'm going to go ahead and enlarge the chats here so that we can have a little bit more space to read.
Okay.
So Jennifer writes, recruitment for my agency is an issue. I have concerns for candidates becoming employed and either not going to work the first day or quitting or getting fired within 2 days. So Jennifer's issue is with the actual candidates.
Right.
Kristen mentions competition with the non-WIA participants. Employers have other options in this economy. Employers with temp agencies and have contracts with them, so they are kind of weary hiring permanent employees.
So exciting. Certified apprenticeship programs. Is anyone engaged in any OJT placements using apprenticeship programs so far? Did the one company turn you down because they want people that are fully seasoned and ready to go? Yeah, well, that kind of is outside the scope of the OJT NEG, isn't it? Yeah.
Another question to throw out there is maybe along with these challenges, what would you need from all of us to support you in kind of addressing some of these issues? So maybe throw that in there as well as what could be useful in dealing with these challenges. Alan writes, my talent pool isn't very reliable. They cancel interviews, they don't show up for appointments, they don't provide me with current updated resumes. Nothing but excuses. So it sounds like a lot of the candidates are really making it difficult for the employers to sign in.
Yeah. On the client side, are you kind of relying on folks that walk in the door of the one-stops or the WorkNet centers, or are you doing any actual recruitment effort to expand your talent pool for to get those folks that have been laid off and want to work but just aren't quite finding anything? That's one of the things that some areas have found and other states have found is that recruitment effort for new clients, rather than just relying on folks that walk in the door, has been successful because those are folks that are motivated to go out there and get a new job. Most candidates want to continue collecting unemployment till the end. Yeah, that's a common theme throughout the state. Yeah. Maria and Brenda both. Yeah, those comments are kind of along the same lines.
What I wanted to throw in there is we also, along the lines of what I showed you for outreach, we have similar resources for recruitment. So if you need help or ideas, and I'm sure you all do a great job, but there are other resources on the portal under business services as well for recruitment.
Right. Yeah, Sharon, that's a reality that a lot of areas face. Yeah.
So does anyone have any success stories and kind of, what it was about maybe was it that candidate that was fantastic and it just worked out, or what was it that kind of made that happen? Does anyone have anything like that to share? I feel like it's already Monday morning and it's rainy outside, and then all these challenges come up. At least share one good story.
Okay. So we had a couple comments about how to utilize apprenticeship programs, and we actually had someone talk to us at the last workforce conference about that issue. I'll see what I can find out about that, and we'll let you know. And again, is there anyone online now that is successfully using an apprenticeship program for training? If not, I'll see what I can find out and get back to you. Oh. Well, Rosie, you can't blame someone for wanting to go get a better job. Well, let me ask some specific questions about barriers with employers. Um, are you running into some typical barriers have been that either the employer is skeptical of a government program, or they're just not in a position to hire, or sometimes they feel like it's too much paperwork, or something else. Are those kind of typical? Or yeah, sometimes on a hiring freeze, right? Right. Well, Kristen brings up a good point in the success chat window. And you've got to work those relationships that you have already, and just basically it's your folks having their finger on the pulse of what's happening with employers and knowing who might be a good fit for an OJT. Oh, that's fantastic, Linda. And Renee has a very good question on which strategy works better, targeting employers first and then finding the candidates, or finding the employment and then that's suitable, finding a good candidate, and then finding an employer that works for them. From the ivory tower, I would say that they're both good strategies. You just kind of have to go with what your situation is, but I'd be interested to hear what the rest of the state says about that one. I see the positive chat room is typing away like mad here. Well, Brenda raises a good point, and this was an issue that's out in the OJT toolkit about speaking to local HR groups or other association groups like Rotary and things like that, where business people, decision makers in business are gathered to make them aware that, you've got the program and you might be able to find a situation where you can help them out. If nothing else, just please let us know which method you seem to be falling into, or either falling into or by design, which way you're going about it and how it's working for you.
I think part of that answer is to constantly be working on that talent pool, or your candidates, and then if you have this organic relationship with, like Robin mentioned, with their SHRMs or with their chambers, to be able to kind of know how to do that matching, right? And I think that's one of the bigger challenges, is this is very different from business services typically. And so they have to do both. They have to, have people ready, but then also know where to plug those people into.
Oh, Scott raises a good question about reverse referrals. That I want to clarify what you're asking about there and make sure we're on the same page. Is that a situation where the employer has identified candidates that need training or candidates that they're going to hire? Is that what you mean by reverse referral?
Something came up about that when I was in D.C. For the business services representative training. One gentleman shared that they would give their candidates stickers on their resumes to say OJT eligible, and then when they would go apply to employers, the employers would contact them and say, what does that mean? So that was one way of doing referrals for them, where they would have these little cards or these little stickers that they would put on their resumes to say, hey, find out how you can get some money, or to, whatever that tagline would be. And so they found that to be very helpful in their state.
Just be careful. This came up at some OJT meetings I was at out in D.C. as well, that you're not getting yourself in a position to assist an employer that was going to hire someone anyway. If that's the case, then the OJT really would be better spent on an employer that needs assistance to get someone on their payroll, or an employee or a client that needs assistance to find a job. If the employer was going to hire them on anyway, basically they're just gaming the system to use this OJT funding for subsidized employment, and that's not what we're about. So, if you're working closely with employers, that's fantastic, but just be careful of not funding things that were going to happen anyway. Okay, Diane Murphy says the place for non-EG OJT clients with local employers using cold call visits. Yeah, don't overlook the power of just dropping in and saying, hey, we're from the government, we're here to help, especially if you have a good relationship with them already. Diane, any opportunities to place some of your OJT folks that way? I mean, are you utilizing that cold call approach? Ooh. Okay, Henrina Jones says that they've used a combination of paid and non-paid apprenticeship programs. What kind of apprenticeship was that? By chance, was that a construction trade apprenticeship? Oops. Mechanics. Okay. So not quite construction, but still apprenticeship. Well, from what I'm seeing from the challenges that people are posting, they're kind of traditional challenges that the workforce system kind of experiences anyway, with finding clients that you can place and they're not going to let you down. But I'm very encouraged to see all the positive things that people are experiencing. That's good to know. Be sure to tell us about those when you turn in your quarterly reporting, because those are the kind of anecdotal things that DOL wants to hear about. So when you report those to us, we can pull those right in and send it on out to DC. Okay. Are there any other OJT and EG issues that anyone would like to raise while we're all here together? Something we haven't spoken about yet, or maybe have kind of glossed over, that you'd like either help on, or you've had a good experience with that you'd like to share with everyone else, that might be something that would work for other areas of the state?
So someone asks, how stable is the funding for the NEG period?
Oh, it's very stable. It's Recovery Act funding, so it has been allocated out to us. The only thing we might run into is if at some point in the next few months, if Illinois is showing that we are having a difficult time spending the money, I suppose it's possible that DOL might reallocate us and send the money to states that are spending it faster than they know what to do with. But as far as the pot of money being stable, it's established, and it expires on June 30 of 12. So it's Recovery Act money, so it's there, but it's kind of a one-time thing. Rosie asked about client reporting and IWDS. Yeah, I'm talking about the client information, like what services are they receiving, when were they placed, are they getting supportive services, things like that. Basically, it's the standard information you would enter about the client in IWDS. Kristen asked about training on how to determine employer reimbursement percentage for employers, since we consider more cost than regular OJT. Well, the employer reimbursement percentage is based on the work site, the number of employees at the work site. So that's pretty cut and dried. I'm not sure what you're talking about when you ask about considering more cost than regular OJT. I mean, regular OJT, if you mean like the regular percentage of OJT, that's 50%. But for the OJT NEG, depending on the size of the employer, you can reimburse up to 90%. And the figures are available on page 11 of the wheel.
And the policy letter is available under that OJT training. And actually, we have, I can go ahead and upload the chat pod for that. There we go. So you just go ahead and select the file name and then download it to your computer.
So there they are. So if you're dealing with a small company with 50 or fewer employees, you can go all the way up to 90%. Now you don't have to pick 90%. You know, if in working with a company they can get by with less than that, you're fine to use that, but you can go up to 90%. So hopefully that information was helpful. And there's more information about that on page 11 of the policy letter. Okay, OJTs that are active, will they be covered if funding is minimized? Yeah, we would not put anyone in a position that you'd have to, you know, cut someone short on training. You know, once they're in, they're in. I mean, the training can't go on for longer than 6 months anyway. So, you know, we would know in working with you, you know, how much you would need to finish out training. And, you know, there's been no indication given to us that DOL is planning to reallocate. I'm just was putting that out there that is a possibility that, you know, potentially could happen. But we've been given no indication that they're planning to do that. So don't be alarmed at that at this point. But someone asked, you know, is the funding secure? Well, yes, it is, but there's always the possibility that DOL might shift the rug underneath us a little bit.
Someone asks, Mike, I guess too, I think the question on OJT reimbursement, there are ranges. How do we work adjust for the third level of the 76 to 90%? What do we use to determine the level we go up or down?
Well, the first thing you would look at is how many employees the employer has and figure out which pot they fall into, you know, which level of reimbursement they fall into. And, you know, it's up to you to negotiate with the employer, the final reimbursement rate. You know, you just have to take into account the situation with the employer and see where you need to negotiate it to. That's really the best I can tell you, I think. I mean, unless you were asking a specific question about which rate you pick, but, you know, it's based on the number of employers. 6 months. So, Brenda, are you asking, like, if the employment or the training period might extend beyond 6 months because it's not all consecutive? Oh, holidays and vacation time. Um, that's an interesting question. Everything I've read has said 6 months, and holidays and vacation time, don't really count it. If they've earned it already, that wouldn't count in the mix, but I will double check that and make sure. But that's my understanding, is holidays and vacation time wouldn't count. But I would think that not a whole lot of people would qualify for that, right, vacation time anyway, right away, but they might. I'll double check on that, though. And then I have a question for everyone. It came to my attention.
You have been muted.
Sorry, Mike, go ahead and
Okay.
say that again.
Okay, you did a contract for $974 to be safe. Okay, I'll double check that, Brenda, and let you know. Do an ITA, then OJT. Well, let me ask you a question before I try to answer that one. What reimbursement schedule is everyone using? It came to my attention that one area, or at least one area, was thinking of waiting until the entire training was done before they reimburse the employer, which I could see to be a major barrier to employer wanting to participate. Can you all give us some feedback? Like, are you doing it every pay period, once a month, something else? But what kind of reimbursement schedule are you on? Okay, Rosie says monthly. Okay, upon completion of the training. And Eve, what local area are you in? Is there any particular reason, Eve, that you settled on upon completion of the training? I would suggest, for those who you checked with the providers and felt it imposed on the employer to be asked often. You mean asked often for like payroll records for the reimbursement? I think I would advise you or encourage you to check directly with the employer. I mean, if you've got an employer that can wait until the end of the training for reimbursement, more power to you. But I think especially smaller employers, since they're incurring the cost of that employee, they're would probably be more willing to participate if they got reimbursement more regularly than at the very end. But again, it's a case-by-case basis you'll have to look at. Question up above while Eve's typing. Is it okay to do an ITA, then an OJT reimbursement if it's less than 6 months? So by an ITA, you mean you have an ITA on somebody for WIA services, like they're getting education or some sort of training already, or are you talking about doing it at the same time as the NEG? Okay, so you're saying then that you have an ITA with somebody and they complete that, and then you want to go ahead and enroll them in an OJT. That's perfectly fine. Yeah. Actually, it will help your numbers because the placing them in an OJT puts them in employment, so you have a successful outcome. Doesn't really matter if it's related to their training or not. If they're a good fit for the employer and the employer is willing to take them and the client is willing to take the training and be employed there, that's the bottom line. So, if they had any other WIA funded training prior to that, doesn't prohibit you from putting them in an OJT NEG. And the 6-month time limit is only on the OJT NEG. They may have been in WIA training for a year, and then you could place them in the OJT NEG as long as that portion of it doesn't exceed 6 months. The goal is to get the folks into the placement, so that's not a problem. Oh, I'm sorry, Linda. Part-time, where's that at? Oh, how flexible is it changing between? Who are on and off part-time jobs, are they eligible? Oh, you're asking about people that have taken stopgap employment just to get by after their UI has ran out? Okay. This is a common question, and we had to go to DOL to get a ruling on this one, and here's what they came back with. We don't want to penalize people for taking stopgap employment, especially like the 99ers who have run out of benefits. So what you have to look at is what kind of stopgap employment are they taking, and can you help them out, get them on a career path with OJT and EG training. The one thing you have to look at, I'm going to type it in the window too, the one thing you have to look at is, would they be dislocated worker WIA eligible if they walked into the one-stop today? So, there are some folks that have taken stopgap employment that still don't meet self-sufficiency requirements, or are earning a small enough wage that even though they do have some income, they would still be considered DW eligible. That's the one thing you have to look at. I mean, they've got to, of course, meet the other eligibility criteria. They have to have been laid off initially on January 1 of 08 and have 22 weeks of unemployment. But the 22 weeks of unemployment don't have to be consecutive. Okay, so if they've, more power to them. If bless them if they were able to find some sort of income during the economic downturn, but that by itself does not eliminate them from eligibility for the OJT and EG. The question will be, did they get too good of a job in going about that? And you'll just have to look at that. But if they're DW eligible right now, even in spite of taking that stopgap of employment, you can go ahead and put them into the OJT and EG. So I see we're winding down on our hour here. So are there any issues that we haven't broached yet that anybody wants to bring up, or anything that was kind of vague that you want to clarify before we have to say goodbye?